Welcome. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Good morning. I hope you had a lovely evening yesterday somewhere, maybe at the beach, in the city. The weather is really amazing right now. We're very fortunate. And good morning also to our online participants. Welcome. It was an intense, but I think quite a rewarding day yesterday, thanks to everybody. It was really packed, and we had also plenty of opportunities for networking and catching up with friends and colleagues that you know, and maybe you haven't seen for years, for collegial discussions, and also meeting new people with an interest in lifelong guidance. I met some new people yesterday. We did a lot of work online. We are doing these days a lot of work online, and also our meetings, especially also at Cedefop, both for environmental reasons and to be, say, gentle on the budget. Yesterday, we had a very fitting opening from our 4 welcoming speakers. I think we couldn't have asked for a better welcoming, in person, online, and recorded. Session 1, we presented the framework. We walked you through the framework. And I think by myself and Jana Kettunen, who's going to chair our first session today. We had session 2 was followed session 1 with the TVET Interagency Working Group on Career Guidance with our colleagues from the European Commission, the ETF, OECD, ILO, UNESCO, also looking outside of Europe. Sessions 3 and 4, I think were really interesting, very fruitful, with experiences relating to national guidance strategies, frameworks, and coordinated services, where we discussed changing mindsets, let's say habits in a sense, toward a more holistic and lifelong learning and lifelong guidance view, making better connections, improve communication, and stepping back to see the big picture, the lifelong picture of systems. Coordination, as might be expected, was a much discussed topic. Not surprisingly, it's been, and this whole, I would say this whole event has been a really collaborative effort. So moving on to today. Today is session, we have 2 sessions and then a closing and a short break. We have session 5 and 6. And session 5, implications for capacity building, research, the front lines and policy, different independent perspectives. And I will now, I think it's better to, I'll hand the floor now to Jana Kettunen, who was well introduced yesterday, so everyone knows Jana, who will chair and moderate the next panel. So I'm going to leave the floor now to you, Jana, to introduce the speakers. And also I want to mention a thank you to Wolfgang, our rapporteur, for this session. Thank you very much for the rapporteur for session 5. And later on, we'll have some announcements. Thank you. Jana, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. And welcome to all to the session 5. I'm pleased to be joined this morning by our experienced colleagues who will speak in their personal capacity. So with me, we have Jennifer McKenzie from Ireland, Margit Rammo from Estonia, Danielle Roy-Miller from Switzerland, and Tibor Borbei-Pece from Hungary. And as already mentioned, Wolfgang is our rapporteur. Thank you very much. Before we begin our discussion today, just one short orientating thought. Research and policy work over the past 2 decades have consistently identified the same elements when describing lifelong guidance systems: legislation, strategic leadership, cooperation, professionalization, and evidence of impact. And these are also elements, as we heard yesterday, the part of the new framework, and addresses through it transversal guidelines. And they are the threads that will guide us through on the discussion also on this panel today. As we start, I would like to with the brief opening round. From your experiences, what is one part of the framework that feels especially useful, and what is the first thing what was the first thing that you thought, this is where the real work is? Jennifer, may I ask you to start?
Thanks, Jana. I suppose being involved in the working group for the guidelines, it's hard to pick one particular piece. But for me, I suppose the professionalisation is a key component. If I tell you now, think of a ski instructor, you'll have an idea what a ski instructor does. You know, I've never gone skiing. I know from the telly what they do. You know what a teacher does. You know what a doctor does. You know what a plumber or a hairdresser does. But if we ask anybody, what does a guidance practitioner do? If you're outside the guidance world, you may not know. And this does really apply across all services. When you're involved, when you've access to guidance service, you kind of have an idea of what that person did with you or for you. But we don't have a general understanding of what a guidance practitioner is or what it looks like. And I think the professionalisation guideline really gives an outline of what we mean by a professional guidance practitioner, counsellor, advisor, whatever they're called in each region, each country. So I think getting to a point where we say that guidance is always delivered by a suitably qualified person, whatever that qualification is in each country, then we can really expect our politicians, our policymakers to really see the value of this work and to support it further. So,
thank you, Jennifer. Margit?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all here, and thank you again, Cedefop and Cynthia team for hosting the event. I believe the real work begins when framework meets practice. And you remember the triangle, policy, research, and practice? They need to meet to be able to make a difference. As a Euroguidance member, I would also like to have one more corner. It's internationalization, and this is exactly what this event is about, and it's a cross-theme across these three topics. Regarding the one part, when in a document like Jennifer, I cannot name one. But I believe that it's important to, regarding implementation, to make sure that they end up in daily routines, and when it really needs to become from the description at policy level into the routine, so that it embeds stakeholders and they really jointly plan, implement, and make decisions together. So this is really important. So that way I would say that leadership, professionalization in all levels, also including leadership, but practitioners, and also cross-sectoral collaboration. Thanks.
Thank you. That was more than one, but accepted.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tibor, go ahead.
If I want to be really short, I would say this handbook is the annex or the cookbook of the 2004 resolution. So if you're a decision maker, you ever went through of the 2004 resolution, a few pages, a couple of strong highlights there about lifelong guidance definition, CMS definition. We heard these yesterday. But how to go to the kitchen and start cooking your own guidance system, you need this type of handbook. And then if I can add a second point, that also it make a clarity about the confusion many professionals still have, because guidance has many domains. So we have psychological guidance, pedagogical guidance. We work as guidance counselor in addictology, in family therapy, and many other fields. So this is super clear that when we are referring to lifelong guidance, in other words, this is career guidance. And for those who are really following the literature from the 60s, this is what we used to call vocational guidance. So now we have a super clarity about the domain of our action.
Thank you very much. And then, Danielle?
Yes, I think it's also from a Swiss perspective, it's difficult to take out one point of the framework. I think in Switzerland, very often practitioners have a very much internal view of, still an internal view of career guidance. What career guidance is, what practitioners are doing in their centers. And I think the main value of this framework for me is this aerial view of, it's a bit what Tibor was already saying, to understand what are all the elements that contribute to career guidance, and I think that's very important to have this overview. And I think the difficult way where it becomes difficult is to convince also policymakers that career guidance is not just career counseling in the centers, but it's much more, and that it has a value for the whole country.
Thank you very much. Really like the thought of cookbook, and that it gives us the common language, important things already, professionalization, the leadership. We have seen that lifelong guidance yesterday and the presentations, that the lifelong guidance looks very different across countries, sectors, and institutional settings. What helps framework like this to become useful across such a different context and move from document into really a living practice? Jennifer, let me begin close to the practice. From your experience in educational settings, what does it take for the framework to land?
Thanks, Jana. I think as we've all kind of mentioned, that the framework provides the elements, so it provides clarity and understanding of what guidance actually is, so that there can actually be active cooperation and collaboration for delivery. Because as we've discussed, it's not just about the cooperation coordination, it's about the delivery on the ground, and these need to align. So understanding that embedding elements of guidance into curricular subjects supports connecting school subjects in particular and exams to the real world and future possibilities. We often have a situation, and we have this from OECD reports, that students don't quite know, they don't understand what's out there in the real world. And how do you connect learning this in mathematics to what I want to do in my future life? So being able to understand and connect what my future looks like to what I'm currently studying at the age of 14. But also guaranteeing dedicated time for guidance classes is crucial to providing students with the dedicated time to think about themselves and what they're interested in, but also in adult education, in return to education and second chance education, or returning to work training programs, to give adults the opportunity to really think about themselves and also explore what's really of interest to them. So it's about embedding, those career development programs within the education and the training systems like VET as well. But also I think to help it to land is to not expect the guidance practitioner to do everything and solve everything. It has to be a whole of service, whole of school, whole of institution approach, because the reality of it is it can't be the guidance counsellor or the guidance practitioner who's expected to take a group of 14-year-olds or a group of 21-year-olds in university and say, right, we're going to fix what you're going to do in your future. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more understanding needed. So having that whole school, whole of institution approach gives the possibility of that cooperation and collaboration to support the actual guidance practice.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Now, Margit, from your current work in Estonia, what helps a guideline become something that not only schools, but also municipalities and regional actors actually use?
Thank you. The actual implementation starts when leadership is connected with everyday practice. And when focusing on education sector and schools in Estonia, we do have several political reforms going on. So implementing and further developing our education system. And it's clearly that our schools are very autonomous. our school leaders are very autonomous, and school leaders' role in implementing this is crucial. So the uptake is strongest when school leaders see the lifelong guidance as part of the curriculum, and the school leaders see what is the mission of the school, and they add it to the timetables. They help to define roles at school level, and they rather see a systematic approach than having like add-on exercises like an event there or a training there, so the whole picture at school level. So, it is critical to support school leaders so that they can make a space for teachers and counselors and also outside stakeholders to cooperate on career guidance. We have just launched a new program. The Ministry of Education and Research launched a new program, Career Plus program. So we are focusing on the efficiency of career education in schools. And we have actually just finalized a toolkit for schools just to bring together into one piece what can be done at school level. A lot is happening, but very often the dots are not connected, and this means waste of time, waste of resources in general. So making it a systematic. The toolkit is supported with like an Estonian tour. We call it a tour. We went to all the regions in Estonia, met the school leaders and municipality leaders, and discussed together what is happening, what can be done, what are the ways forward, and peer learning between these stakeholders was really helpful. So the guideline helps to reflect, to create a common understanding at school level. It helps to update the school curriculum when you're following the same principles, and it's really helpful. So the discussion was summarized with the very unknown words that what we need is shared understanding, we need a systematic approach, and we need cooperation also at school level. So it's especially important. And the way forward is that now we are preparing a call for municipalities to take a regional cooperation, to think what can be done regionally, how a municipality who is a owner of the school, so what they can do to support schools in these matters.
Thank you, Margit. I turn to you, Daniel, now, and continuing a bit more about the regional level. So in decentralized systems, guidance may be organized quite differently in one region, one canton to another. What can a common framework offer in that situation? And what makes it useful in practice rather than just another document that is published?
Yes. Maybe if I look a bit back in time in Switzerland, I've been working in career guidance since 2012. And at that time, career guidance in Switzerland was in sort of depression because the law had been changed, the VET law had changed. They had taken out of the law, of the federal law, almost all about career guidance. And the cantons were missing sort of common grounds. So they didn't feel really esteemed. And at that time, and the cantons could do whatever they wanted. They were largely free, what they wanted to do, what services they wanted to provide, and so on. So at that time, I think already the framework developed by ELGPN was very important to find new common grounds, to develop our strategy. As I said yesterday, it was adopted then in 2021. And of course, it's not legally binding for the cantons, but it's a shared commitment for the further development of the canton. And what was very important was to develop also an action plan, a concrete action plan. So what do we want to do with the strategy on the national level, but also we invited the cantons to examine their practices, to compare with other practices of other cantons. And this was extremely important, to find new common grounds. And as I said already yesterday, we are in a revision process now. We will be, I hope, a bit more courageous. We were a bit careful maybe in 2018 when we started developing the strategy, because we had to convince the policymakers again that career guidance is important, even if it wasn't in the federal law. So will be a bit more challenging, maybe, or I hope so. And we are also thinking already about the action plan on the national level, but again, also inviting the cantons to compare their practices. And then this is very important for us for the discussions with the policymakers, local ministries and so on, to show them what career guidance is.
Thank you very much. Resonates a lot what we also heard yesterday, and also leads me now to Tibor. Tibor, from your perspective, and let's take now a system perspective. What helps a framework like this to become useful for national development rather than remaining at the level of general principles?
Yeah, I think when adults are learning, they all the time mobilizing their previous knowledge. So for a long time in European history, people believed that the world is flat, and we realized it is not. So, and obviously when we are talking about decision makers, these people are adults, even if they nominated to be a minister of education or a head of the public employment service or a minister for social inclusion and so on. So now we have a new minister of social inclusion in Hungary who is actually a blind people. And then there is a very interesting Indian story, I think many of you know, then how blind people are realizing what an elephant is in the room. So you start touching different pieces of an elephant and you start having different type of understanding what lifelong guidance is. First, probably because you are trained as an educator, you believe that the triple L is the same as the double L and the G. And people in the room would be absolutely annoyed because we know that lifelong guidance is not the same as lifelong learning. They're coming hand in hand. So how to educate? I think education, because career counseling is basically about educating people, empowering people with skills, but we also have to educate and empower decision makers. Don't take it into granted that just because somebody has a high level of rank in a public administration or in a university knows everything. It's better if they believe that they don't know everything and they are not reluctant to ask, but I mean, human behaviors are very different from country to country and from individual to individual. So I think the first standing point is still the 2004 definition, what lifelong guidance is. Then the second element, we keep echoing it during the 2 days, what the CMS is. And CMS in the pedagogical concept, I think it's a very tricky competence because it's also cross-connected with civic competencies, cross-connected with your learning capabilities. So it's not only career readiness or career management skill itself. So it makes even more complex for those who are coming outside of the guidance domain to understand what and how we are talking about in the field of lifelong guidance in the last couple of decades already in Europe. So, and once you have a common definition and you have the capability to organize a roundtable, that's why we advocated the lifelong guidance councils or forums in the last 3 decades in different countries. Then the ministries of education, the ministry of labor, in the economy, and all the other players, I'm not going to list all of these, come together and having the same understanding on the elephant. But then they also have to disengage, because if I'm a head of the public employment service, I'm not going to concentrate on the national core curriculum. I want to see the outcome at the shop floor of the public employment service. So they have to gain ownership about the lifelong guidance definition, in the meantime keeping the same definition and learning something which is easy to say in policy design and very hard to do in real practice in any country or even in the European Commission, to learn how to work horizontally. And therefore I think the horizontal guidelines in the handbooks are very important. But it takes time, and it's a learning journey for everybody.
Thank you very much. What emerges here is that the framework becomes useful when it's embedded. Are we calling someone? Someone is calling us. Not only schools, municipalities, regions, and also the learning part, and us also being the ones to speak and educate also those who are and jointly work horizontally across the sectors. But none of this happens without the people and organizations who actually do the work. So let me now turn to organizations and behind the work. So practitioners and providers are increasingly, as mentioned already here, expect to sit at the intersection of education, employment, social service, and use new tools, data, and labor market information well. What actions are needed among people and organizations to make lifelong guidance work in line with examples of good practices and policies that are identified in the new guidelines? Margit, let me start with you on this time. So people who do this work, what kind of preparation does the framework call for?
Yeah, I can only echo professionalism is the key. And really the framework has a key message that lifelong guidance is a professional field itself with its own competencies which need to be recognized. And it highlights the substantial need for academic training, initial training, but also supported with CPDs, the continuous professional training. So it is it's lifelong learning in career guidance as well. And it's really a cornerstone when it comes to quality. So, and this is what professionalism is, what gives actually confidence for our professionals to work also across sectors. And let me here share the Estonian example. Despite of the fact that we have a strong professional qualification system, which means in career guidance, which is linked to the national qualification system, which means that stakeholders together have identified the role of career guidance practitioner in different settings, have identified the skill set, what the practitioner needs to be able to fulfill the role. We still lack the initial training. We don't have the academic full course. So it is a gap in Estonia. And the preparation and training pathways are still uneven, and it's really put on practitioner to find these ways how to take care of your skill set. So the recent studies confirm that there is a mismatch when it comes to raising demands. And this is not only Estonian case, surely we need to assure that the professional development is ensured. And in Estonian case, especially school sector, the teacher's role is substantial next to school leaders, of course. And we ask a lot from our teachers to be able to run career guidance as a cross-curricular theme. However, the reality is that the main subject is prioritized, and our teachers, school staff, they lack the skills to be able to be this bridge and to be the first support in school. So I'm glad to share that the first professional qualifications for school staff were awarded last year. So we are launching that process, and also University of Tartu has opened new courses for teachers explicitly, either to support the elective subject or for teachers to be able to integrate career-specific items into the subject teaching, like any subject teaching. So it's really important. So, however, the professional cannot rely only individual motivation, so we need systems behind. And to be able to meet the ambition that the framework sets for ourselves, we need to ensure at country level, at national level, that the pathways are structured, the career competencies of professionals are recognized, and there is a continuous professional development which is supported by the national systems. Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Margit. Daniel, the guidelines, they have to work in very different cultural and institutional contexts. same kind of question. So what helps them genuinely support professionalization rather than sit top of it?
Yes, in Switzerland, as a matter of fact, we have 26 cantons, we have 4 languages, we have very different language cultures also. And even in my canton, which is the canton of Bern, we have French-speaking and German-speaking practitioners. So it's really a bit two worlds, or it was a bit two worlds, because in Switzerland, to be a practitioner in career guidance, you need what we call in Switzerland a Master of Advanced Studies in career guidance, and you can do it either in the University of Lausanne for the French-speaking and Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, or in 3 institutions in German-speaking Switzerland, and the approaches were very different until not so long ago. So even in my canton, really it was difficult to have a common understanding of the work of practitioners. So I think the framework really is important for the definition what a practitioner is doing and for the concepts. And as a matter of fact, I was very surprised to see that it worked. We were more afraid that common concepts couldn't work than finally it turned out that we could learn from each other and the differences were not that big as we thought before. So for instance, we mandated recently, or 2 years ago, we mandated the universities of Lausanne and Bern for a study about career management skills in Switzerland, in the Swiss educational and system and labor market. And we found out that there was no difference. They worked very well together, which was a bit more difficult before. So concepts can work in different contexts. We also had this project called Via Mia, which is an employability check and career counseling for people over 40. And this was, for the first time in Switzerland, we had one service under the same name with exactly the same concept. We had online meetings of all practitioners in Switzerland to foster the idea of this service, the concepts behind it, etc. And suddenly we saw that it worked in all cantons with the different languages and so on. So I think it's important to have common tools, to have common projects to make things work. So recently, for instance, we developed also, the universities of Bern and Lausanne developed a common overarching counseling concept. Then we mandated the French-speaking regional conference of career guidance to work out practical guidelines for the concrete use of AI in career guidance. So suddenly the German-speaking practitioners who sometimes maybe think we are a bit better than the French-speaking ones. So they found out, wow, this is excellent. And it was developed in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. So I think through common projects, through really concrete actions, it's possible to foster the common understanding. And then it's also a matter of resources. We cannot, in 26 cantons, you cannot do 26 times the same work. So I think today, really, the common work based on the framework and the strategy is perceived as a help and not as a restriction, because only together we can ensure the highest possible quality. And then I think really the personal aspect is very important. So, for instance, we have now cross-cantonal intervention, supervision, also cross-linguistic if possible. So I think it's important that people meet as much as possible online or in presence, which is not too difficult in Switzerland, as Switzerland is a very small country.
Thank you very much. Jennifer, one important feature of the framework is, where Daniel a little bit was touching also, is that it's outcome focused. So what does that mean for how do we think about the work?
Thanks, Jana. I'm very conscious that a lot of what we're saying kind of relates to everything that was said yesterday. And I think that's the key point about this framework, is that it actually provides the clarity. It's been thought through. This is the cookbook, the handbook, and it's really important for us to kind of reflect on that. And I think the key message of, looking at the outcomes of guidance takes, I suppose, adds a level of importance to guidance provision. And it is crucial that as guidance services, we are accountable to our clients, we are accountable to our students, and we're also accountable to the people who are paying for it, people who are funding it. It was mentioned yesterday about, project after project is funded by lots of different fabulous EU funds, and then the project is over and the sustainability is gone, and then there's another project. And I think the value of outcomes should be in being able to provide that evidence of, well, it's working. Can we just keep going? Can we continue with it? And for the public money, for the taxpayers, the private partnerships, whoever's funding it, to see, okay, this is what we've invested and this is what's working and this is, the evidence of what's working. But it's also, the outcome allows us to provide clarity on what you can expect from engaging with a guidance service. I go back to the ski instructor that I've never gone skiing, but I know if I go to a ski instructor, they'll teach me how to ski. When we go to a guidance service, what are we expecting? And for too long, we have had an expectation that you go to the careers practitioner, teacher, advisor, whatever they're called, and that person will tell you what to do, what job to get, what course to go to. And that's not what guidance does, and that's not what guidance is. We have clarity from evidence, we have clarity from this framework that the person's career, their life, their education decisions are based on their own knowledge about themselves, developing their interests and their wide set of competences. And the role of guidance is to support that process, to support them along that life's journey. And it involves the opportunities to actively learn about themselves and having access to planned and supported exposure to the labour market and voluntary services. So an outcome of guidance is having that opportunity, or an activity of guidance is having that opportunity. For many years, I would have known of students in what we have in Ireland is called transition year. So it's a non-academic year between junior high school and senior high school. It's right in the middle, and it's an opportunity to explore. And the number of girls in particular who say, oh, I really want to work in childcare because they've babysat the neighbours' children. And they spend 2 days in a childcare facility going, no, I definitely want to do accountancy after all. But it's a real opportunity to explore and find out, do I really like this, or do I want to become a doctor because my dad's a doctor? So that opportunity and that expected outcome is crucial. It also provides the clarity of, as I say, of what we're expecting from a guidance service. But when we're talking about, we're also talking about the need for professional practice with the appropriate training, the appropriate certification, whatever that looks like. As you were saying, Daniel, in one part of Switzerland, you'd have one particular qualification, in the other part, you'd another qualification. What is it? What's expected in our country? But also it means a shift for the guidance practitioners, because for many years, in Ireland in particular, we had this idea, well, guidance counselling is confidential. And I can't possibly tell you how many students I met or how many classes I've done. I'm sorry, that day's over. The confidentiality aspect of guidance is a crucial ethical part of guidance provision, but the accountability is, yes, I have met with 10 students for guidance counselling this week. Don't need to tell you what we've discussed. I can give you a general outline of the issues that are arising. And I know, our at home in Ireland, our professional body this week have produced some evidence of, what guidance counsellors are coming up against in their guidance work. Doesn't mean they have to name the students. So that accountability, that evidence production evidence provision is really, really important. And I suppose the other thing from an expected outcome perspective is the clarity of what is the role of a guidance service and what isn't. So for example, a student, an adult, accesses a service, they develop their career management skills, they do a job application or an application to college. It's not the guidance service's fault or the student or the adult's fault if they don't get the job or if they don't get the place in college. If 100 people have applied for 20 places, 20 people got the course, Is that a successful outcome of guidance? Does that mean the other 80 people were not a successful outcome of guidance? We need to be thinking about that the successful outcome of guidance is that the individual had the skills to make the application, to go for the interview, to take the step, and also to make plan A, plan B, and plan C in their respective kind of, what am I going to do with my life decisions. So I suppose the last piece about the outcome for me is that cross-cooperation across sectors. So, for example, we all know of the Europass, but we don't have a situation where everybody is using Europass as an example. So, one example could be that an outcome of guidance in schools is the beginning of the Europass use. An outcome of the vet sector is using it then to make the applications to work. An outcome of higher education, further documenting their qualifications. So we have tools there that could be part of documenting, well, here's an outcome of the guidance service a person has developed, their Europass. So for me, it's that shift in thinking that guidance is private and it's over here and you can go away. I'm not accountable. We are accountable, and that's the world we live in. But it also contributes to the evidence gathering, which makes the point for our guidance services and our guidance profession.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Moving and where you at the end you were referring also the importance of cross-sectoral cooperation. Tibor, the cross-sectoral cooperation doesn't happen by itself. What does the framework ask for governance and leadership to make it real?
Yeah, probably the very first step, if you ever negotiated with the government, actually you can't because each government has individual members. So you are actually negotiating with different ministers or with the prime minister or president. We intend to say when we are visualizing a government that it's somewhere there, but in the end of the day, when you go to ministries, there are real people with real mindsets there. So first, having their understanding about lifelong guidance and the outcome of lifelong guidance from their own sectoral perspective, and now I'm referring back to the first part of the handbook, which is about the sectoral guidelines. And the sectoral and the horizontal guidelines, therefore, perfectly fits together because we need both to make an argument with decision makers. Secondly, I think as any citizens, including decision makers and politicians, they have to change their expectations against career counselors. Because now what we are discussing, that the outcome of our work, if you are still a practitioner, like I used to be, is not about matching people with jobs or fixing bad behavior in the school when the principal is bringing the kids to us and said, okay, when it's fixed, please bring it back. Or when we have vacancies and surpluses in the labor market, and then still some decision makers in employment policy believe that career guidance is a tool when we can balance the two sides of the labor market. So when you are a policymaker, and especially when you're a policy analyst, you have a toolbox to use, and a toolbox as an allegory being used in many European policy design. But I think the first issue is to discuss with the decision makers that when we are opening a toolbox, there are different tools than only hammers. And even if you choose a tool, you are not modifying the tool according to use it on a hammer, because it's probably a screwdriver. So you have to get a proper understanding of the nature of what career guidance is. I think majority of the miscommunication in the European level, and although in many countries where I worked before, it's coming from the different expectations of the citizens and the decision makers towards career guidance. And don't forget that ministers are ordinary people. They have kids. They looked for a job. So the common sense, the common way of misinterpreting the role of career guidance in different countries and in different cultures is also very much clearly visible within the ministerial structures. So if you are a head of, moving back to the employment policy, if you are a head of a public employment service, probably you believe that you need more career counselors because all of your vacancies will be filled. If you are somebody responsible for the social inclusion system, you believe that if you install more career counselor in the social protection offices, then people will get jobs very quickly. So, I mean, what are the role expectations about the two? Because then if the role expectations are unclear when we start designing policies, then obviously the outcomes and the expected outcomes will be very far-fetched from the reality. And then in the end, it's not a win-win situation where we are heading, but it's a blame-blame situation we already eyewitnessed in many countries, in many cases. Now I installed many new jobs for career counselor and look at the outcomes. There are no hard outcomes and no hard evidence. So you have to settle this is what we often using in policy design, the PDCA circle. I mean, there are different type of methods to do it, but basically from the plan, do, check and act circles, it needs to be properly designed. And what we can expect from career guidance, I think in one word, this is a behavioral level outcome. So even we call it career management skills. In English, I think it's more a competence, and every competence has an attitudinal element. So the real outcome of guidance, and this is why I'm still saying that we need to educate the decision makers, like anybody else who's our service user of career counseling services, it's a change of your attitude. And if you want to see, for example, in the school system, you want to see learning outcome, every learning outcome is always connected with attitude change. So knowledge and skills cannot be disengaged from attitude. And I think that's the secret role of career guidance, supporting these type of developments. And then this is what we have to bring in to the policy debates when certain regions, countries, or the European Union itself designing career guidance policy.
Thank you very much, Tibor. We have heard that shared outcomes and cross-sectoral governance are enablers of quality. As expectations of lifelong guidance grow, what kind of evidence, monitoring and shared learning do we need, and how can the framework help without becoming only a reporting tool? Daniel, from, once again, canton and regional perspective, what kind of evidence is most useful for improving guidance systems when services are organized differently across regions?
Well, first I have to say that in Switzerland we are not very strong when it comes to evidence or research on the impact or outcome of career guidance. And maybe this is a bit because the perception of, as I said before, the perception of career guidance in Switzerland was very, for a long time, career guidance is just to help young people to choose one out of 250 occupations. So for this, there's no question that this is needed, this form of career guidance for young people. So it is, funding is like God-given. But I think if you want to go further and to show that there are other aspects in career guidance that can help the whole society and the economy also, then we need more evidence. And maybe I can come back to this Via Mia example, I already mentioned it. So this was funded by the Confederation, even if the Confederation in Switzerland has nothing to say in career guidance, but they funded the program and they invited the cantons to participate, so all cantons participated, and this needed to be evaluated by an external company. And the program was very much criticized on the political level, but the evidence on the effects of this Via Mia program were so strong that it was really a strong argument to, even with all the criticism now, the program could be led into the future, because it showed that even with an average of 1.5 sessions, counseling sessions, it had a positive effect on motivation, work motivation, satisfaction, and also the willingness to embrace change. So it was very positive. On the other hand, it showed also that there was weaknesses in what were the next steps after the counseling. So all this was taken into consideration when it was about how can we improve the program. There were also online forums for all practitioners who worked in Viamia, so they could really learn from these results. And it was very important on the practical level, but also on a political level. So I think, and even now the program inspired the Ministry of Migration. So now the Federal Ministry of Migration, they invited the cantons for a new program for migrants, which is counseling about employability and then also a sort of case management for people who want to start working. So it really had the impact that even the other ministries said, okay, maybe in career guidance we can help our political objectives to put them into practice. So I think this kind of evidence is absolutely needed, and I think it's also a strong aspect of the new framework. So in Switzerland, really, we want to foster this aspect because funding of career guidance is not God-given. And we are also thinking about a common system of customer surveys, which are more based on not just was the practitioner friendly, did he provide you with good information, but really also was it useful, how did it help you for the next steps, and did it provide also did it foster also the skills needed for the changes you have to make. So I think this would be an important thing also to better understand differences between cantons, have an external perspective, not just the internal perspective, and also for the mutual learning to have a common surveys.
Thank you very much. Margit, from the perspective of Nordic politics or wider European cooperation, what kind of outcomes or evidence can emerge from working together around a common framework?
Thank you. I really like the metaphors we are using here. So the cookbook, it becomes very useful when it creates common language, like it has been mentioned several times, the language that supports real cooperation, but furthermore, it allows us to recognize the common challenges, despite of the fact that the structures are different. So this kind of, either it can be in the area of competence development or evidence building, it is really a helpful tool like this. So the Nordic Baltic, the broader the Euro guidance example is a lot about peer learning and peer reviews. In fact, we were working together with Ireland a couple of years back, and we call this process a critical friendship, which really helped having the common framework. We used the old one then, from the LGPN times, and it really helped us, 3 countries, Ireland, Estonia, and France, to reflect on our needs, to reflect on our challenges, to support each other with further ideas, and it was really supportive. And it's like normality in networking at the international level, so really helpful, and it respects the national differences, which is really important for us. We are European, but we have our national realities. Also, a recent study reveals really positive impact of our networking at European level, but also it points out the practitioner view. So really would like to highlight that the practitioners want more. They want more support, more training, more systematic, more continuous. So we do have a clear goal or clear aim to focus on as stakeholders across Europe. And I really believe that the cookbook is really strongest when it helps countries to move from the fragmented system to the more systematic ways of working and coordinated ways of working. So really, that way it becomes useful. And finally, I would like to also take my economist hat as an economist, I can't leave the resources topic out. I also mentioned several times, it's really an investment. So investing into the system, it actually helps us to save resources and prioritize and invest into those items that actually are meaningful. So yeah, a call for all the countries to invest into career guidance and to use the networks that we have. It's really fruitful to have this kind of cooperation within networks and between countries.
Thank you very much. Continuing a bit what Margit already was mentioning, Jennifer, from practice and service development perspective, could guideline like this be used as a tool to reflect on whether guidance is achieving what is meant to be achieved?
Thanks, Jana. I think we'll end up calling this the cookbook for the future, and the official title will be the EU Reference Framework brackets the cookbook. So that could be our next hashtag. I think for many years, when you think about the developments in career guidance, in lifelong guidance, in guidance counselling across the world, we've relied internationally on independent professional bodies who do a fantastic job. They're absolutely brilliant. I think some of them are watching us, so hello. And they've done fantastic work. They've developed guidelines, they've developed ethical practices, and they've provided very clear indications and guidelines on what guidance is and what it looks like. But with respect to all the professional bodies, they then have to confirm with their governments, their regions as to, well, this is what guidance is and this is what it looks like, and if you've ethical practice going on, this is what it looks like. But they may make an arrangement with one government individual, and that government individual is gone, and that public sector person is gone, or the civil servant is moved on to another position, and all that interrelationship has gone with it, and all that understanding has gone with it. And I think that's where this handbook, this reference framework fits in now. It's providing a clear, reference point that has developed because of all of the work of all of the professional bodies, of all of the independent experts in European guidance for many years. And as Margit mentioned, the ELGPN, the guidelines from there was a piece of work from the member states. And it's wonderful that this reference tool has taken that and developed it further. So it's really, really important that, using this reference framework then is the benchmark for future governments and policymakers to think about it. And I suppose the essential element of this framework is that the guidelines have been objectively developed to reflect all of the core elements of best practice recognised internationally. And they can be used as an objective reference point because, again, governments have different views of different organisations. So here's the objective document. And can it be used to, clarify what can be achieved and what is being achieved? Just in my own work, I've been involved in a project that was, working before the guidelines have been published, but the previous event, which launched in winter of last year, in the autumn of last year, the YouTube video, I was able to share that with others outside of the EU to say, well, here's what's happening. Here are the core elements with the publicly available information. So it was having that reference point that came from the EU that really made, it helped my work a bit, because it's not just me saying this. It's a large group of, advisory groups and policy groups in informing this particular piece of work. And also, the guidelines clearly show that guidance is a system, and many of us have referred to this over the last couple of days, and it involves several different actors and factors. And the outcome, what's being achieved with guidance, can be affected by those environmental factors. If you have a particular region, I know we had a region in Ireland a number of years ago where the one big factory closed. So generations of people in loads of towns around that area who all were unemployed overnight. And that was it. You know, then what? What happens then? Now, thankfully, you know, the organisations involved sent in the guidance services to work with people. So, you know, there was support available. So it's about, you know, it's not just the outcome of guidance. There's environmental factors impacting on the individual at the end of the day. And I suppose that brings me back to the quality assurance message as well, that it's often difficult to measure in services with human connections. What is that quality assurance piece? If the person doesn't get a job or doesn't get the course, as I mentioned earlier on, is that a failure of the guidance service, or is that just the system that we live in? There are 20 places in a course and 100 people have applied for it. And you know, in times where there's a high level of unemployment, there might be 2 jobs and 2,000 people applying for those 2 jobs. So there's environmental factors that we in the guidance world can inform policymakers. Well, how can you maybe change? But, you know, it's not a failure of the individual, and it's not a failure of guidance if the plan A hasn't worked. So the clarity, there's a fly has joined the panel here today.
Very fan of us.
Yes, very fond of us. So having that clarity of the intended inputs of guidance, developing CMS, providing work placement opportunities for students and adults. For unemployed adults, having an opportunity to try out a job is really, really important. And also to understand that if somebody is a lone parent, they can't take on a job that has night work. So it's not that they're being awkward, it's just the reality of their family life. But providing opportunities to try out work placement opportunities, to ensure that there are classroom or group work or career research or information sessions, and guaranteed time for that individual one-to-one. Because again, when we talk about career management skills, we're also talking about balancing that with guidance counselling, career counselling. So talking with the individual, okay, you've developed these skills, where are they going to help you? What are we going to do with them? And also that clarity of the intended outcomes, that the individual has the skills now to support their own life, career and education journey. Once we have that clarity, it makes it a little bit easier to determine, well, what can be measured, what should be measured, what can be achieved. And as I mentioned earlier on, you know, these guidelines are a reference tool for policymakers across the EU and our neighbour countries, as you've mentioned, Daniel, in Switzerland. We think of EU, we think of Europe. Well, the UK might want to have a look at these reference tools as well. We're not allowed to say they're part of Europe anymore, but they're part of the European area. And, you know, so to recognise that this framework has a reach beyond us across the EU. And my final thought really on, you know, what we can achieve and what could be achieved and what could be measured as being achieved. I think one of the things we need to do is to make sure that these guidelines are part of the training of all guidance practitioners from now on. I think it needs to be on the core curriculum for training for guidance counsellors. So there's an understanding not just why their training is as it is, but here's the framework to reference, well, this is what your job looks like when you're finally qualified. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Tibor, how can the guidelines support policy learning circles between different stakeholder groups, between different, between councils, governments, European institutions, member states, social partners, researchers, and practitioners?
Well, I think time to time, now it's a delicate time in 26, but time to time, certain stepping stones were popping up in the field of what we now call lifelong guidance, career guidance policy. If somebody from overseas watching us, workforce development policy also has many common elements with career guidance policy design. So we have many names, but I mean, this stepping stone started somewhere when the World Bank in early 2000 got an interest, start understanding career guidance systems. Then the OECD 2004 publication, Bridging the Gap. Then we have the LGPN guidelines 11 years back in time. Now we have a new version of these guidelines. So I think the opportunities are here time to time. And then policy design works in the same way, like we know it very well, how happenstance works in career guidance and individual career development. So nothing is written in stones in policy design. There are different types of lobby groups, different types of interest, very different level of understanding of what is meaningful for a country or for the EU or for the United Nations. Look at what is now going on within the UN bodies. We never saw it before since the Bretton Woods Agreement was signed. So nothing is written in stones, and I think in policy design, the policy memory is super important, and then adding to this institutional memory of the ILO, the Cedefop, research institution all around Europe, institutional memory, Jennifer, this is what you explicitly mentioned, of the ministries of education and labor all around the European Union and the European Economic Area. Because, again, just if I can use one of the word from career guidance theory, if you recalling how the Prohaska-Diclement recovery cycle works. Sorry if it's too far-fetched in career guidance theory. One element is what we call contemplation, and if the counselee is still contemplating, they're not starting any action. So what is the actual role of the guidance counselor? Moving from the contemplation to the engagement and explicit action. So I see a lot of parallel, similar structures in policy design and then working with individuals. So now we are in the edge again. That's why I'm saying it's a delicate time when we have the product, ownership of the Cedefop, which is one of the major players as a European institution in not only in education, but also in vocational education training and employment policy research. There are only a few of these institutions, like the Dublin Institute, ETF, and others. So the product is there, and I think the key question is how to upload it. So not only single member states can upload policies, like in 2004 was the Irish presidency uploaded the resolution. Then in 2008 was a French presidency uploaded the lifelong guidance resolution. Now it's an opportunity for Cedefop, it's an opportunity for the IAG, all of these institutions working around, to start this lobbying and uploading this. Obviously, decision makers not going to read 200 pages. We are the ones reading and writing those. They would be happy with 2 pages. Or even if you have 1 page and one single, yeah, it's like in an academic defense. If you have just 1 minute, can you tell me what is your mission statement? Just give me the line. And that's it. So the window of opportunities all the time are opening and closing. And one more practical, technical thing from policy design. Within the European Union, since the Barroso reforms, very clearly the European semester is the mechanism. So we have a very well-structured European semester process, which brings together the European Parliament, the Council, the Member States government. We are playing this table tennis, this ping-pong between the European institution and Member States. And the outcome of this, the learning outcome of this, if I want to translate policy design to career guidance and counseling, are the so-called CSR. So this is what we call the country-specific recommendation. And country-specific recommendation, again, I'm using the allergology from career guidance, the homework of the member state, the homework of the counselee to work on the CSRs. So then the question is here, we have a toolbox which is not connected with the European semester. Obviously, it's not connected with any of the CSRs. So career guidance, lifelong guidance in the European semester just popping up accidentally, but there is no systematic approach behind. So if we want to make a system level impact, that it basically means that as a next step, it would provide plenty of work. I think in Brussels people would be happy with this for the country desk officers and policy officers in Brussels using the handbook, coming through of the employment system, education system, vet system of certain member states, and reflecting on these. And then one more sentence from my side. You probably feel that this is a mission impossible. And then what I can tell you, this is not, because we have the youth guarantee since 2008. And if you look at the youth guarantee, which is mainly connected with youth policy has many similar features like career guidance policy, because not a single institution, usually not a single ministry, is responsible for youth, especially when it's about employment and education. Then you have 2, 3, I don't know how many partners to discuss with. But there is a well-structured mechanism at the moment within the European Union. How the youth guarantee need to be followed up and implemented in the member states level. So my very positive message, if this is feasible in a certain field, then it must be feasible in another field as well.
Thank you very much. We are coming to close. So before we close the session, I would like to invite each of you, and okay, now I'm watching also to have a really brief round. So brief. Yes. Yeah. So 1 or 2 sentences. So one thing in this framework, what is the one thing in this framework that you would want every policymaker in this room to take away? We got quite a lot of food for our thoughts from Tibor, but what is the one thing? Daniel.
First, I really like to say that I'm very grateful for this cookbook. And I think career guidance in the strict sense of counseling is useful, but that the outcome can be multiplied with cross-sectoral cooperation, and that it's worth to invest in this field to avoid, as was said yesterday, the cost of uninvestment.
Brilliant, thank you. Jennifer.
Thanks, Jana. Conscious that policymakers in the room or watching may have had their own positive or negative experience in career guidance in their own past, and really to assure them, this is it, this is the document, you can trust it. A lot of work has gone in, there's expertise from all across the EU and international organisations. It does provide the answers, it does say what guidance is, it does say, how to deliver, what the accountability looks like. This is it. If you take the document and use it, you'll be on the right track.
Thank you very much. Mark?
I would like to highlight the practitioner view and the professionalism. So it is the cornerstone of quality. Yeah. Don't forget it, yeah. Especially in schools, especially when it comes to school leaders, teachers and school staff.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Tibor?
I can reduce it to one word. Look at lifelong guidance as an ecosystem, as a shared responsibility of the whole government, whatever government we are talking about.
Wonderful. Just to summarize and to close the session, so what can we take out of this conversation? The framework is a toolbook, or I guess we call it toolbook or cookbook, that help countries and regions to build, check up their own coherent lifelong guidance system. It provides common ground, shared concept, expected outcomes and indicators that support cooperation across sectors. It opens space for mandated strategic leadership and professionalization, which are the real enablers of quality and sustainability. It can be plugged in the wider political processes, giving lifelong guidance fresh political attraction. Lifelong guidance is an ecosystem, not a standalone service, and the framework helps make that visible. I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank our reporter, the Cedefop, for bringing us together around this framework, and to all of you for your engagement in the field. With this, I will close the session 4, and we have 30 more seconds. Thank you.
I pass the floor now to my co-moderators.
Hello everyone again. Thank you, Cynthia. So we have a little time, but I think it has been super interesting these 2 days and the session before, and kind of making sure that we keep up with the same level that the previous one is going to be difficult. It was a very good session, but I have a lot of people here that I think have a lot to say, and they are really valuable speakers. Very good. So I will be chairing the session with Alessandra, as Cynthia said. Cristina Manzalin is our rapporteur, so thank you very much for it. And I have really very distinguished speakers, and I'm very happy to have them join online. I have to juggle here a little bit with the online also. So 2 of them are online, and yeah. There we go. Okay. So online is Siham Sadi, and is from the representing, let's say, the Public Employment Services for a senior advisor from the French Employers Confederation, Business Europe. Thank you for having us, for being with us here. I have also online. I had the slide here. Sorry. Also online with us is Inga Balnose Sien from the Public Employment Services in Lithuania. And here in the room we have Tatiana. I'm terrible with the names, I'm sorry. But
You're bad with Lithuanian names. Babrauskine.
From the European
Babrauskine.
From the European Trade Union Confederation, and Pauline Wobin from the Lifelong Learning Platform, representing civil society organizations, and Concetta Fonso, Deputy Coordination from the National Reference Point in the Istituto Nazionale in INAP in Italy. Sorry about that. The key issue here in this session, really, what we wanted to do was to bring together the stakeholders' perspectives. And we have seen that career guidance really has, in the previous session especially, that is a complex ecosystem, as they have said, with many different actors and different perspectives. So bringing here the stakeholders and telling us what they think of career guidance is fundamental, and to see how this framework can help them in their work is also fundamental. So I think it's a very important session. We don't have too much time. The idea is that we first will give them the floor for an opening statement, and then we will have some small follow-up questions for all of them. So Alessandra, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Ernesto, and thanks to all our speakers. Thank you also from our speakers online. So let's start this session by your opening statements. We really appreciate you to be concise, as you have heard already that we have very important time constraints, as this is the very last session of the event, and there are also flights and connecting flights after. So we will open by your opening statements, and we would like to have your perspective in how do you see your role as key stakeholders in implementing and developing career guidance. How do you see the added value of quality guidance provisions and common frameworks and guidelines also, or common grounds and expectations? How should, on your perspective, that role evolve to better support skills development and also career transition in the labor market by keeping in mind also the issue of inclusion? Let me start by giving the floor to you, Siam. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. So great. Good morning, and my apologies for not being in person with you today due to a private. So I'm very glad to be part of this meeting because Cedefop led great work on guidance and the publication of the cookbook of our lifelong guidance with the 18 guidelines will be very helpful to guide the national policies and system development of guidance. And speaking on behalf of Business Europe, which is the European social partners, and speaking also on behalf of MEDEF, which is the national social partners, I'd like to stress the important role of social dialogue in career guidance when it comes to effective guidance and training provision. For employers, career guidance must help people enter jobs, progress in work, reskill, and make transitions that correspond to real opportunities of jobs. Companies, sectors, and employers' organizations can provide up-to-date intelligence on occupation, skills, work organization, and recruitment difficulties. And this is particularly important now when the digital and green transition are changing a job profile faster than many systems can capture. Considering the quality guidance systems, it creates value for individuals and employers. For the individuals, it makes choices better informed and less risky. It helps people understand the labor need and identify the transferable skills and find realistic pathways into training or employment. And for the employers, the quality guidance it improves matching and makes professional transitions more proactive instead of crisis-driven. And for the public policy, quality guidance helps connect education, training, employment, and inclusion's objectives. Considering the point of the common frameworks and the guidelines, they are very useful when they create shared expectations across providers, because we have many providers. And the shared expectations should target the accessibility, the impartiality, the professional competence of advisors, and the use of reliable labor market intelligence. But the common framework should not become an additional bureaucratic layer. Their real value is to provide a common language so that people receive coherent guidance whether they enter through a school, a public employment services, a sectoral body, or a company setting. That is all from my side for the opening remark. Thank you for your attention.
Very relevant. Thank you very much, Siam. And Tatiana.
Yes, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Ernesto. Maybe what was not an introduction, what Siam has not mentioned, we both are members of the management board of Cedefop. And I just want to make a shorter, maybe a trip to the past. In 1975, Cedefop was established by the council decision, by the decision of the parliament, on the proposal of trade unions. Its tripartite structure reflects exactly the idea that social partners and the government, which having seats here instead of in the management board, shall be involved in everything what is concerns their skills development. So one day per year, it's usually first week of October, this very room is full of stakeholders. On my left, two last rows, there are employers. There are two rows are unions. Behind, there are governments, the ministries. And the first table is reserved for the coordinators and for the spokespersons of the groups. Before we have groups meetings, and then we can come with the kind of common position. Why I do this records to the past? I mean, because it's very important. It's what happened 50 years ago was not happening by coincidence. That was 60s and 70s dramatic industrial shift where the workers had to be supported by strong policies. European community needed the agency, and it was established. And actually, in 50 years, it didn't change. Today, we have triple transition. We have digital, green, and demographic transition, influenced also by geopolitical things which affect businesses and affect our labor market heavily. It's around 40,000 workers every day in 27 member states lose their jobs. And more than half of them without any support or guidance what to do in the future. These people have responsibilities, family, financial responsibilities. They are citizens. And despite of this, we fail to provide the support. I don't want to blame any national stakeholders or the governments. It's simply that we need to have stronger coordination. And then, therefore, as speaking on behalf of the trade union movement, I just say that we really welcome the new lifelong guidance, because this is something which might help us in this important transition time, and its implementation is crucial. Involvement of trade unions, social partners as such, I see in implementation. It's not enough to write the guidance. We need an action plan, and in this action plan we have to decide who is responsible for what. Outreach, quality assurance. There are many elements when the guidance becomes the reality. And of course, professionalism of those. It was mentioned that during these 2 days, a lot of things were mentioned. I don't want to repeat them. There is something which is confirming just what we as unions say, like UNESCO, for instance, that those people who undergo the guidance process have better salaries, and also they are in a way have higher job satisfaction. They feel safe at work, and it's very important. And instead of being kind of reactive, we need to be proactive. We need to support the transition of workers. And therefore, of course, we will be involved, and trade unions and social partners want to have a seat in these processes at European and also at national level. Not just consultation, but collective agreements, collective bargaining. This is very important. If it's not possible, then at least influence the legislation, which is impacting their workers' life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, also for this insightful short trip back to the birth of this agency. And Inga, I leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, dear partners, it is my great pleasure to join this panel discussion. And it's my opportunity to speak from the two closely connected perspectives. From the perspective of European network of public employment services, but also from the perspective of Lithuanian public employment service. Thank you, Siham, and thank you, Tatiana, for mentioning very important aspects and highlighting the main objectives and also activities we have done so far. Also, I would like to express the gratitude for the previous speakers for highlighting the career guidance and guidance in general so high on the agenda of a lot of stakeholders. So for public employment services, I would say career guidance is also no longer a supporting activity. It is becoming one of the core instruments how we can help people to navigate change. And during the discussions in the network and also on the local, national level, we also always highlight that careers are less linear than before. So people may need to change jobs, sectors, skills, profiles, or even professional identity several times in their working lives. At the same time, we hear what the employers are highlighting. The employers face labor and skill shortages. Also, the society, it was already mentioned by Tatiana, faces digital, green, and demographic transitions as well. So I see the role of public employment services in three main dimensions or directions. First, we must translate labor market intelligence into meaningful individual choices. People do not need only information any longer. They need the support of public employment service to understand what that information means concretely for them, their skills, family situations, and also how the labor market intelligence could be confidence and influence their future. The second, we have act as connectors in the guidance ecosystem. We cannot deliver quality lifelong guidance alone. We need strong cooperation with education and training providers, employers, municipality, NGOs, social partners, and communities are very important for us. This is particularly important when we are delivering the services for those who are farthest from the labor market, facing difficult situations and having also social exclusion as well. These people would never actively seek guidance themselves. And the last but not least, it is about the efficient but also human approach. Digital tools, skill forecasting, AI supported matching. We have a lot of self-service platforms elaborated yet in the public employment services. And it is great to expand the access. However, for people facing complex barriers, the human counselor remains essential. So I strongly believe that the future of guidance services, it is not digital only. It will be hybrid, personalized, and inclusive. In Lithuania, as in many countries, we see the importance of practical partnerships. For example, initiatives to connect generations, strengthen digital skills, and bring services closer to the communities. These examples remind us that guidance is not only about the matching a person to a vacancy. It is more about empowering people to participate fully in the labor market and the society. So my key message from the perspective of public employment service is that we, as the organizations and institutions, must become not only employment service providers, but lifelong career partners and ecosystem leaders. If we combine quality guidance, shared frameworks, strong partnerships, and a human-centered use of technology, we can better support skills development, fair transitions, and also labor market inclusion for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inga. Very interesting, and thank you for raising also the issues of outreach that was very touched very many times during our past sessions. And thank you so much. What about you, Pauline?
Hi, I work for the Lifelong Learning Platform, and we represent the European Civil Society for Education. And I'm actually very happy. A lot of good work, good words also over the 2 days. A lot of things that we advocate for, that member states are implementing, that stakeholders are implementing. And while some of the points that we usually advocate for has been mentioned over the 2 days, I'm happy to be invited here today because the civil society has not yet been so much represented and mentioned. We mentioned social dialogue, but civil society are not necessarily invited in that. The Lifelong Learning Platform, I will tell you a bit more about my organization. We were created in 2005. We have 45 member organizations. They are also European network. And as civil society, the perspective that we bring here is the user perspective or the learner perspective. And last year, we published a manifesto, a renewed manifesto on lifelong learning, renewed because the first version was published in 2015, and now we celebrated our 20 years anniversary, and we published this renewed manifesto with a time horizon for 2035. So you can scan here the QR code and you can navigate this relatively short publication. The first pillar is about inclusion, and one of the first principles is about flexible learning pathways. The vision that we have on guidance is that it is not restricted to career guidance, and I know that it is also very well accepted in this room, while there was also a strong focus on the labor market. So my point will refer mostly to that. How can guidance support access to the next learning experience also? Our annual theme this year is on validation of competencies or of non-formal and informal learning and recognition. We understand validation of identification, documentation, assessment and certification of non-formal and formal learning, and recognition more in the broad sense. And here guidance play a central role, and guidance counselors are important actors for the validation and recognition. And I think in there also the Cedefop framework on guidance and the principles apply for also very well for the validation system, but we know that in the field of validation there's also guidelines which are also very good for the development of the sector. In the past we also had yes, I mentioned that we are working, our annual team is on validation and recognition. We are drafting a position paper. This is a QR code that linked to a registration form because we organize a focus group this month. Now it's a bit late to be involved in that, but if you want to be updated about the position paper when it will be published, you can always fill the registration form. You can also submit literature and projects on the topic. So yeah, in the past we had projects on guidance. We had a project on building competencies for multi-stakeholder partnership. We designed also a digital competence card tool for transversal competencies. So it exists already on paper with a physical card, but you can find online also a competence card tool that you can navigate the guidance practitioner can use online and play around with the different transversal competencies, and those are listed based on the European frameworks. And we also had a project where we trained guidance professionals on how to validate transversal skills, because of course they can participate in that process. And our role at European level is to shape European policy. For instance, we raise awareness about transversal competencies. We also build our members' capacity through their network, and we connect stakeholders. And that also relates with what I mentioned before, that we promote flexible learning pathways connected in the different sectors of education, from vocational, adult education, school, non-formal, youth organization, and so on. And we build bridges between these learning environments. And there, again, guidance play an important role. And for us, we see the framework really as a compass for member states, a compass for stakeholders. However, we think it's a pity there is no an EU policy on guidance pushing for this. I mean, 2008 it was quite a long time, so why not having a new policy that give an impetus to member states to act on that? Of course, there are other mechanisms like the EU semester and the funding program, but having a strong message from a EU policy would be helpful. And finally, how do we see the role of guidance to evolve? So again, since the other stakeholders were represented, I will represent those that usually don't have a voice, the learners, the users, and so on. And yeah, if we could say one priority, we should reach those most further away from lifelong learning. I mean, we have targets at European level for participation in lifelong learning. We're not progressing so much. The target is at 60%. We have 40%, maybe for 5 years still, so not making much progress. So set target, meet targets, and we need people to be aware of the services that are available to them, like learning opportunities. And I now asking a question: who in this room knows about micro-credential? If you can raise your hand.
Everyone.
Everyone. So yeah, among us, we have a tendency that people know about this, but do people actually know about it? Just launch a survey, ask people, ask them, do they ever hear about micro-credential? Probably the answer is a bit different than in this room.
Thank you, Pauline. Yes. The microphone, please. Okay. Thank you, Pauline. Yes, we have seen that skill policies is not only qualification design, it's not only inventing or reinventing the wheel at each level, but it's also very, very close to giving meaning to the definitions, because there is a big debate, for example, in Italy, what is a micro-credential? Yes, by standards, by European standards, yes, we know, but then each part of the system is designing its own, so we need more on this. And Concetta, what about you? You know a lot of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the floor, for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. It's a great pleasure for me. And yes, to be honest, it was really a learning journey for me. These 2 days have given me a lot of inputs and interesting reflections about what is going on, but also obviously, a lot of interesting points also for the future in terms of new challenges in front of which we are and which obviously we have to deal. Well, back to your question, it's not so easy to answer because obviously all stakeholders have a key role when it comes to the new lifelong guidance framework. We have, as researchers and also people that support policymakers, obviously the task to help the implementation of the guidelines of the frameworks, and obviously also when there are national standards to implement the standards. This means not only to help to start the process of implementation, because it was already mentioned, but it's important to stress it again. It is also important to create the context for the implementation. This means that before starting a process, it is necessary to define common concepts, to define a common culture, and obviously the framework, the Cedefop framework, gives us a help in that sense. It gives us the context in which we can work, in which we can involve our stakeholders at different levels, because we have not only the national level, we can have also regional level, a local level. It means creating the conditions for the implementation, and this means also, first of all, to take care about the dissemination, because we talked about a lot about implementation, but before implementing, we have also to share the tools with our decision makers, and we have to make them aware about the added value of these different tools, and the implementation starts with sharing the tools, with reinforcing communication and dissemination. So this is our task, but I think it's the task of all the stakeholders to create different spaces and different moments in which they can share what was done at the European level and what is available from Cedefop sides and also from other providers that help us pushing forward the lifelong guidance journey. So from my point of view, we can have a double approach when it comes to the framework. We have the policy level, we have the system level in which we can find the policy strategies and the different, obviously the different implementation phases of these tools. But we can we have also the practical level, I mean more the provider level. And in that case, again, it's very relevant to have the right communication, because we have seen that we have a lot of actors involved from different sectors, and involving them is not so an easy easy task. It means that we need a lot of time because it's also a time-consuming task. It means fixing the right moment when you have to share these tools, and also providing support when it comes again to the implementation phase. This means that we have to equip people in order to use these tools. It means that we have to invest on the practitioners' competencies. We need to support them not only to use them in their daily life, but also to understand how they can improve these tools. So it's about adaptation, but it's also about being flexible and also innovative when it comes to the implementation phase. This means that we have to take about different dimensions, which is not so easy to sum up very fast. But anyway, we have two different levels, the system and provider level, and obviously we cannot consider only the providers that we at the moment know, because probably in the future there will be other providers. There will be new skills that we have that we need to take care about. This means that we need also to take into consideration that our systems evolve. Our labor market are in transitions. We heard about different kind of transitions. This means also that our policies must be adaptable in the future to what are the new needs. But at the moment, of course, the framework is a reference point for us, and for that we thank so much Cedefop for the work done.
Thank you very much, Concetta. Very, very relevant. And yes, we have seen that guidance delivery is increasingly decentralized, involving public, private, but also third sector organizations, civil society, also going behind the sector institutions, and including multi-professional as one-stop arrangements, and taking into consideration also outreach solutions. So let's continue with you, Concetta. From your perspective, can you go a little deeper on what are, on your opinion, the priority conditions needed to ensure quality and consistency in guidance services across providers?
From my point of view, the guidelines help us to set the framework also for quality and quality assurance. But obviously, we can implement the tool, but we need at the same time also to monitor and to evaluate what is going on. I heard in these 2 days, obviously, talking about the need to have also tools for monitoring and for evaluation. From my point of view, it means not only to have the tools for these two activities, to monitor and evaluate. It means again to equip people in order that they are able to use the outputs of the monitoring activities and evaluation. It means that we can have a lot of tools, we can have a lot of frameworks, we can have a lot. Usually, when we talk about quality, we talk about indicators, qualitative, quantitative indicators. Usually we develop a lot of indicators, but then we have the problem when it comes to monitoring, how we collect data, how we analyze the data, and also how we can take advantage of the data that we have collected. So data literacy is not so a common competence. Also, when we look at the people that are professional or expert in the field, so it is useful to invest more on these tools. And obviously, when it comes to quality guidance, we have to also to take care about the fact that we need resources, which are human resources, but also financial resources, because all these activities obviously require investments. This is very important. So also time is very important when it comes to evaluation and to monitoring. So the tools are already available, but again, we need to contextualize these tools also. It means that probably the set of indicators that I use in my country are not so useful for another country. It means also that probably a vet provider needs different tools from different kind of providers and so on. And in the case of guidance also, I would like to make a final sentence, a final statement. Obviously, we need not only to measure the quality of guidance in terms of job placement, because this is a little bit reduction when it comes to guidance. We should look more at different dimensions which are implemented when it comes to guidance activities. So it's not only a quantitative data that we need probably also to contextualize the intervention so that we can give a meaning to what we are doing. And obviously we have to take care about all those skills that have been mentioned. So it means not only on technical basic skills, but also transversal, soft skills, career management skills, and obviously looking a little bit also to the future, I would say also all those skills that could help people also to be more included in our societies and also to participate more actively in our social life, so also the democratic skills, because obviously we need to have a better world for our children, but we also need better children for our world, I would say. So that's all from my side.
Thanks, Manchetta. Yeah, we are. I'm aware of the time, so I think that what we can do is to follow up with you, Tatiana, now, and you can tell us a little bit of what, from your perspective, are these kind of the main issues, the priority conditions, let's say, and then if you can tell us a little bit also on how that connects to the guidelines and this cookbook that we were talking about.
Thank you. As Pauline has mentioned that, first of all, guidance is seen as the compass, and indeed it needed to navigate in the very complex world of work and much broader in life as well. But from union perspective, we also see it as fundamental right. The pillar of social right is mentioned also in the guidelines. And if we look from the perspective of fundamental right, then it doesn't matter how much decentralized services are. Either it's public or private or union or third sector providers are. The issue is about the quality. The issue is what is in the guidelines 3 and 7. 7 is professionalism. We need real professionals there. Going deeply, not just providing and putting ticks, okay, now 10 people came to services and got support. No, they have to be really professionals, and a real touch is needed to those who need the support. So if we look at, that's very short, it's very simple. If it is right, this right should be ensured. And that is all understanding, I mean, there should be common understanding of all 27 member states. Let's make it reality, and then we probably avoid that in 50 years, again, we're sitting in this room or another room and saying how to solve the issues. This is a chance for us. We see these guidelines as an opportunity, and let's take it seriously, and let's take it carefully with monitoring and evaluation for sure, and the involvement of all stakeholders. Indeed, the social partners, but also civil society organizations are very important players. Thank you.
So, Pauline, what from your point of view, what do you think in terms of priority conditions and kind of these guidelines, what they tell you?
Yeah, as I mentioned, one of our priorities is to increase participation in lifelong learning, and equity also is an important topic for us. So the one priority condition, therefore, is adopting a user-centered approach or learner-centered approach. And back in 2019, we actually worked on the concept of community lifelong learning centers as this one-stop shop that can really reach out more easily to any kind of individuals, the learners, but also the non-yet learners, reaching them where they are, providing a diverse set of services. And I had a slide, if you want to have a look at the paper, we actually worked on that with Cedefop. So yeah, with the QR code, you can find a bit more information about this paper. So that is one solution in this context. In the context of this paper, we looked at how to reach out to youth at risk, mainly. and early school leavers, but I also heard that some countries are implementing that. I heard, I think, from Finland, and Cité des Métiers in some way is also this kind of one-stop shop with low entry access. We also submitted recently a European project on that, so finger crossed it will be selected and we will be able to experimenting it more. Because yes, the guidance system is very complex. I also note that the Irish guidance strategy, what they did with the map of all the guidance services in the country is an amazing thing that they have done. It really helped all these guidance services to connect between each other and to provide clear information to the end users. And they achieved this, I think, because they conducted a wide consultation with stakeholders. And it's also another very important aspect. And the second point I would like to make here is, I mentioned that we have a holistic vision on lifelong guidance. So we tend to, because it's a lot about career employment, we tend to promote also guidance for personal development and well-being. And it's also in this session title. And here, multidisciplinarity is very key. And I think the community lifelong centers provide that. They provide service for mental health, they provide service for psychological support, for coaching, because one should never underestimate the impact of failing at school, or failing on a job, and then in failing on society, on an individual. And so those are people that really need a super boost of self-confidence before they're remotely able to re-enter the economy. And how do you do that? We need to value what they can do, their activities, their passions, their interests. I mentioned already the transversal competencies, the life skills. And I'm really sorry to hear that in some countries, they don't think that learning for this is important. I heard that the Netherlands decided to cancel their individual learning accounts because people were taking photography class and yoga class, and they thought, oh, that's not how the member states want to invest. I think that's a pity, because for some people this is the start before being engaged in learning for the job. And finally, this learner or user-centered approach means that we also need to involve the beneficiary in designing the service that we provide to them, like they did in Ireland. We designed the guidance materials, the guidance, information portal with the users, because they are the ones that can tell you if it's clear, user-friendly, and accessible, right? And that's where working with civil society, who is actually representing all these individual people, can help, because they can also support you in improving accessibility.
Sorry that we have to cut you, because I want to hear also, especially because you were talking about the users friendly, the end users and how important it is. I want to have the views from both Inga and Siam. I'm sorry about the names. So Inga, maybe with you first, very quickly, what are those priorities? What kind of resonates from what you have heard already?
So, speaking from the Public Employment Service network priorities, we speak about the creating of common language between institutions, because all of us, we see career guidance as very important, but also we see the same labor market challenges from different angles. So in the network, we discuss a lot that the role of us should be should evolve from a work-first approach to a career-first approach. And of course, the employment remains central for public employment services. But what we would like to have in the future, it is the proactive approach. So helping for the individuals to build their resilience, to adapt to the new skills, to make the transitions before unemployment or exclusion occurs. This is our priority for the best network.
Thank you so much, and also for the timing constraint. What about you, Siam?
Yeah, So I will be brief, I will be brief. I will not repeat what the previous speakers have said because I share many of their propositions. So from the employers, the key priority condition for quality and consistency in guidance would be a dialogue with the common language that's and partnership between the different actors, whether public or private, which takes into account national and local labor market needs. Secondly, the employer's voice is particularly important in this, as it is essential that employers' changing skills needs are taken into account to inform the guidance that is given, especially in relation to future career and training opportunities. So for this case at the national level in France, my organization may have contributed to a national consultation led by the Ministry of Education, and we have contributed by giving some 14 principles that you can find on the chat on the Teams. And so, as we don't have many times, so I will not go in details in this. So, and thirdly and finally, it is important that training responds to the particular needs of individuals and employers and does not take place in isolation. Therefore, a joint approach is needed. This should also include the use of skills intelligence to inform approaches to training, provision, and guidance. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, right on time, I think, as we were planning it. So that's really good. I don't think that we have time for it anymore. I would like to maybe 1 minute to, if somebody wants to say something from the audience. I don't know, because we were planning until, so if somebody really has an urge to say something, we are happy to hear from you also. I think it's good. And there we go. We have one, so that's good. You have to...
I can't resist. I must say that the Euroguidance Network has also been thinking about the need for a more updated European policy to highlight guidance and to ensure that there is some impetus and motivation behind ensuring that the systems and the services and the processes are meet the current needs of individuals and systems, especially in the context of all the challenges that have been mentioned already. And I was very excited to hear Tibor before, and also that Pauline also agrees with this topic. And I'd be very excited and honored if the Euroguidance Network could partner with the other interested parties. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Actually, this is the point of events like this where we can network. I hope that you have been having time to do that precisely. I think that I'm going to close now. I want to apologize to the speakers for the mess-up in the beginning with the names. I think I was handling too many things at the same time and my brain basically collapsed. But I hope that you forgive me. So I apologize. I know who you are and I know your names and I have the titles really well written and they are in the program, so you all know it anyway. But thank you very much really for the session, for your time constraint. I mean, we know that we weren't given enough time, and I think that what I'm hoping is that it was good. I found a lot of information here that is very relevant, also for the work I do on validation, for example, mainly, but I think for us at Cedefop. And now I pass it to you, Cynthia. Thank you so much. A big round of applause.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for the introduction and for giving me the floor. You have been perfect on time, so I will try not to ruin that during the last 6 minutes that we have. I am indeed stepping in for Mara Brugia, who is the Deputy Director of Cedefop. She couldn't be here today, unfortunately. She's very sorry to miss this final part of these discussions.
As Cinzia said, my name is Ramona David. I am coordinator for learning and employability in the Department for Vocational Education and Training and Skills, which is the department where the work on lifelong guidance is organizationally placed. I am very pleased to deliver this final address, stepping in for Mara. This gave me the opportunity and the push to follow all the discussions, which I found very rich, very engaging, and it gave me, I knew from Cynthia that you are a community, a very active community, but now, today and yesterday, I really had the direct experience with this vibe that you transmit when you talk about lifelong guidance. So before we all part, taking with us our different hats, we carry with us at least one main message, and this is clear, it was clearly conveyed throughout the discussions, that progress in lifelong guidance depends on different actors working together at different levels to build coherent, integrated policies and systems that provide guidance and support across all the relevant sectors. So collaboration and coordination are not optional, they are foundational. If individuals who need to be at the center are to benefit from lifelong guidance support. They are always in the back of our minds. This is what we do for them, and we need to remove all the barriers, institutional barriers, that may actually be unbeneficial for the intended target groups. And this is exactly what the renewed EU lifelong guidance framework is designed for. It provides a common point of reference, the cookbook, the metaphor that was embraced by, I think, all of you, and a point of reference that actually enables the actors to align their efforts, to talk maybe the same language across sectors and systems. And it was very nice to see yesterday and today that the relevance of these guidelines expand the EU borders as the presence of our colleagues from ETF, from ILO, from UNESCO, but also our guests from Switzerland and other non-EU countries have clearly demonstrated. And that collaborative spirit is reflected in how the framework was built, thanks to Cynthia and the team. It is not, we all are aware that it is not easy to build this collaboration and to keep it going. It needs a lot of effort and of enthusiasm and passion. But the 18 guidelines rest on genuinely collaborative foundation, and I want to repeat here the contributions from Cedefop's Careers network, the support of the European Commission, the important contributions from the TVT Interagency Working Group on Career Guidance, from the experts, in particular from the ETF, and the ILO, researchers from the Finnish Institute for Education Research, and last but not least, from the European Trade Union Confederation. To all these contributors, to our colleagues in DG Employment, Cedefop would like to express its sincere gratitude for the effective contribution provided. Across all sessions, another clear message stood out, which is also, in my opinion, which also embodies, in my opinion, the high-level objective and the challenge ahead of us. Lifelong guidance is not just a supporting just a supporting function. It is not a tool in a toolbox. It is an enabling infrastructure. During these 2 days, all of us, all of you, have discussed not a simple policy tool. You have been making a case for a structural shift in how lifelong guidance is placed within public policy. It is impendent on us to treat lifelong guidance as a foundational investment. One that makes systems work better, education, employment, social inclusion, youth policies. It should be woven into all these systems available to everybody, irrespective of their level of education, irrespective of where they are at every stage of their life. But for this objective to be convincing, I mean, here we are knocking at open doors, but for this objective to be convincing in the eyes of the ministers, in the eyes of the institutions, in the eyes of those who allocate resources, it must be grounded in evidence. And again, evidence was data and evidence, and the need for them came across quite often throughout the discussion. And if evidence speaks clearly, if it is strong, it will maybe, lifelong guidance will maybe probably find its way more easily into the European semester or into the country-specific recommendations. And progress is being made. We have heard several examples during the discussions. One example that was not mentioned because it was not the purpose of this event is that the Eurostat's 2022 Adult Education Survey. You may know that for the first time, Eurostat included data on the role of lifelong guidance in adults' participation in adult learning. The definition of lifelong guidance for the purpose of the survey is, of course, specific and bounded. It is obviously linked to participation in adult learning. Still, this doesn't mean that the value is not, this does not diminish the value of the findings. It marks an important step in providing the EU, cross-EU hard data that the policymakers, the practitioners, the social partners need. And it is exactly that kind of data that the framework advocates for or calls for. Cedefop will publish shortly an analysis of this data, and I hope we will have the opportunity to meet again. And I'm not good with the time, I know, Cinzia. Yeah, I was afraid of that. But yeah, just a few findings that are striking. The data clearly shows that for adults who struggle with participation in adult learning, when they benefit of lifelong guidance, the barriers diminish. They catch up with the handicap that they have in relation as compared to the peer groups that do not have these advantages. So guidance has an impact, it has an effect, and we have the data, the hard data to prove it. Yeah, I had some more points, but I will cut them out of my closing remarks. By, of course, saying that the evidence and the findings will be published and we will be sharing with you. And this data makes the case for us, all of us, to take the work forward. We have the cookbook, but still a lot of work ahead of us. That said, I thank you, Cinzia, for all the work, not only for this event, but for all the work that you are doing at Cedefop. You are actually the driving force behind everything that Cedefop does on lifelong guidance. Of course, Ernesto, Alessandra, who has recently joined the team, Maria and Dialekti, who worked behind the scenes, but they had a very important contribution as well. And I thank all of you for your enthusiasm, for the contributions, for showing up online or here, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. And with that, I wish you a very safe and pleasant journey back home.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. And also to the support of Antonio Ranieri, who is the head of our department. He supported the project the whole way. So thank you very much. Thank you to Cedefop.